the rate is going down. And, it's not disappearing, we're not losing revenue, but I would say the rate of growth that we anticipate from 2026 to 2027 is closer to 2.6%. And, that is significantly slower growth than what we've seen over the last 5 years. And what it does, it brings the overall revenue growth right into that same range that we're dealing with the property taxes. So the total revenues are growing really around that 2.5%. And this is time, I'm not going to say the word inflation or anything like that. That those are much too sophisticated economic terms that deal with our national economy and the like. But here in our region, we've seen increasing costs and it's not a Yarmouth thing. We've primarily our budgets being a service organization, whether you're on the school side or whether you're on the general municipal side and public safety, all of them really fueled by the cost of labor, wages, and the benefits and insurances that are associated with labor to, the tune of over 75% of our budget is tied up in these labor costs. And I know we've struggled with labor as well as other communities have. We have collective bargaining, just about every position except for almost a handful. And a lot of the issues you face through the collective bargaining process is you're required to compare your wages in the labor market area. And I can say, we've done these detailed studies for wages across the board. And, it was true that our data had shown, especially, in some of the public safety areas that are subject to regulation by the state. In other words, if you don't agree to have like generally average wages, they can take you to the Joint Labor Management Commission and go as far as having an arbitrator award wages. And so it's important. We've also suffered from retention issues in the last 10 years or so. We've lost, far more firefighters and police officers to taking different jobs and moving than we've ever seen in the past. And so it's been a difficult situation dealing with wages. We've been able to maintain sort of a middle of the pack where, we had been sinking sort of to the bottom, but that's really what we strive for in our community, is to have sort of average levels of wages for public safety and other employees, just not be the bottom sort of tier. And, those costs are rising. We're going to talk a little bit about the retirement costs are rising faster than we'd like to see. I think we've got, we'll go over that in our budget. It's probably closer to 7% between the health insurance and retirement. We've got over $600,000 worth of new costs this year. That's growing at a faster level than it has in the past. If you take those same two sources of benefits, retirement and health insurance, the previous year, 2025 to 2026, that growth was about 308,000. So what we're seeing is double the growth in the benefits. That impacts the school. You're going to see that again in the school's budget as well. And so we have a situation where costs, primarily labor-related costs, whether it's education or the town side, are rising, and they're rising faster than the 2.5%. So we're trying to manage that, and with the slowdown in revenues, that's our one issue. Now, we're also hit with some educational issues that were not anticipated that we're trying to deal with this year. And most notably, there's been a pretty significant shift in enrollment in the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School, where for this year, we have 30 new high school students from Yarmouth in the tech school. And that's the largest increase in any one year I think we've ever seen. That represents an increase in almost 22% of the enrollment from Yarmouth in one single year. That's a spike. And obviously, the formula that we participate in is an enrollment-based formula, but you pay based on the number of students. So that's a significant increase that we're going to have to contend with for this fiscal year, because the students are there at the school as of October. For next year's enrollment, those numbers are used to apply to the formula. That at over 21%, that's over 839,000 new money just in that item, if their budget didn't go up at all. So we're going to see much higher increases. And if you noticed, the Tech has been sort of our rock, because their overall budgeting process has been so solid in recent years. Their assessments have increased commensurate with our revenue growth, and we haven't experienced those problems. But now it's a very big problem because of the increased enrollment. And likewise, the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School District, they're just starting their budget process, but thankfully they've agreed to hold some preliminary budget meetings with us. They have not developed an assessment. They have not finalized their budget. They don't know what their state aid is, and they're still working on it. But the numbers they're showing us, despite the loss of students that are coming over to the Cape Tech, that they're still looking for is it a
6.35%
increase in the overall budget. And we're not suffering tremendously in terms of a spike with our enrollment vis-a-vis the Dennis enrollment, but just that increase alone, if it's equal, it's a big increase for the growth school. And so we don't have their final numbers, and the budget based on all of those issues that we've been able to prepare. We thought long and hard, and we stopped short of. There's a budget policy that the selectmen have set that we're not going to decimate the town services and reduce, police and fire and DPW to make up for larger than ordinary increases in the educational side. So what our methodology has been in sort of starting this budget discussion, and it's by no means completed, is we tried to work with the town departments to pare down and have as lean a budget as possible. We've eliminated, most of the new initiatives, some of the things we weren't, even comfortable completely eliminating, but we've provided for existing service levels in our budget recommendation for the town departments with no new frills, and tried to get it as low as we can to provide as much room for education. And we've reserved amounts for education that are commensurate with our revenue growth, i.e. 2.5% growth in Cape Tech and in the Dennis Yarmouth system. And both of those, we feel, our recommendations will fall below what the school departments recommend. We anticipate on the Cape Tech side, if their assessments come in as we have calculated that they may be based on the enrollment, we are going to be of about $600,000 for them. And obviously, if the Dennis Yarmouth School is looking for 6.3%, and we've put in 2.5, that's a substantial sort of shortfall there as well. So it looks like this will be a year in order to fund some of these increases, especially on the educational side, that we're going to require some type of Prop 2.5 override. And what we'd like to do is to try to work to get that number as low as possible, such that, we've all tried in the past, we've faced this situation, we try to minimize the risk to the greatest extent possible and keep the taxes as low as we can by, if we need assistance with a Prop 2.5 override, to try to keep it as low as we can, so that in the event that it doesn't pass, we'll be able to come up with a plan to absorb that doesn't, amount to decimating town services. And that generally is where the overview stands. And I don't know, before we jump into the actual budget, if anyone had any questions on the revenues, the estimates. I'm very proud to have worked with Jennifer on this. It's kind of interesting is how, we work together. We both have a lot of experience in our um, different backroom methods, and obviously as an accountant, Jennifer does the numbers and I sort of do them kind of on my own, and we get together and we call it reconciliation. And so it helps, to have that independent thought that, we're both very astute at, the types of forces that shape these finances. And when we kind of bring it together, our numbers, I think, are, right together and fully reconciled. So I don't think that there's anything big that we're missing in this, or other areas that are kind of sticking out. But it just, I don't know, gives me confidence working with people with a lot of experience. And so I think that that's kind of where we stand.
The other thing, I think, Bob, just worth mentioning, because you did mention salaries are the sort of the single biggest thing. One of the areas that obviously comes up at town meeting every year is incremental positions. And I think it might be worthwhile just sort of recapping those. Because there's not many. I think that's what my point is. There's not many.
Right. That there were a lot of positions that were requested, new positions, and we have very few new positions, and the positions that are new are mainly funded through user fee departments. And the one new position that we've put in the Public Works Department. So one of the things we've been working on together on this to get a better sustainable plan for the management of parks and facilities in town. And so in addition to, we had an increase in the funding for park maintenance to use outside contractors to help us do what our forces in the town can't do. We've also added a new position of a buildings and grounds supervisor that will be in the facilities department to help be a manager that will support the long-term maintenance of the town facilities, which we felt was a much needed position, that we needed more leadership to ensure that all of our grounds, all of our parks, all of our buildings receive the level of maintenance that they deserved. And in order to fund that position, we felt strongly we needed the position, but obviously we were trying to limit the new funding, try to keep as lean as possible. We worked with the Public Works Department to transfer from an existing vacant position of a mechanic that we couldn't find, for that level of pay, we couldn't find an adequate mechanic that would enable us to bring all of the work in-house and save money. So we took those funds and transferred them to the building maintenance, helped to do that. And that will enhance our local in-house capacity, but not cost additional funds. And sort of tied to that same concept, we have added an additional position in the wastewater department. That's going to be funded by the wastewater enterprise fund for it will be a manager for the plant to help us first finish the construction on that wastewater plant, and then work through the contracting that we need to get it staffed up to get up and running. That is going to be a major effort, and it's not the last you've heard start of that wastewater plant. That is a fundamental change in the town's operations. It's going to be very expensive. It's going to be long-term, and we need to start at this point now in the next fiscal year, managing the completion of that startup of that plant, how that plant is staffed with, we're going to seek to see if we can privatize the operations of it, just like we had planned. And, we're hoping, we won't really know the exact numbers till we get into that procurement phase on how we can ramp into those costs, because when that plant is running, those cost $1 million a year to run a plant like that easily. And other new positions, what am I missing?
The asset manager and water department.
They, in the water and sewer, it's an asset management whole system that they're adopting. So it's going to be a sort of a software and computer intensive process that needs management, that will, all of this hundreds of millions of dollars we're investing in wastewater infrastructure and also the water infrastructure that, we've been investing in over the last, 6 or 7 years, requires, very strong asset management. And we'll be able to, once we get that in for the infrastructure, use that in our other non-enterprise related areas like, roadways, stormwater management, all of the public assets and infrastructure in the town. We want to see actively managed in terms of the whole optimization of performance, the maintenance activities, and that way every dime that's invested in this community is protected to the greatest extent possible. It's just not allowed to deteriorate. So we've got the asset manager, and that's shared in water, wastewater. But once we get those done, we'll be able to, we won't be paying for it out of the general fund, but we'll be able to use it in other DPW areas. And not much else in terms of new staff.
And we'll hear, when we have Jeff I think he's on our agenda for like the first week of February. We'll probably have plenty of time to get some additional information about those. I just wanted to, that's just a quick summary on that.
And, I might add the ones that, things that we did not add into the budget that are much needed, that I hope you do hear about. And I want you to hear them from, me first. One of the leading ones in the police department, one of the things that we're known for in Yarmouth, and it's a very challenged police department. I mean, if you take a look at their calls and what they're involved with, it's a very busy department. And we're very well known for solid command staff and the management in terms of the way their leadership involves all of the officers being tied into the mission. It's a highly professional department. And one of the needs that they have in that department is for an additional supervisor to be on the night shift. This would be a lieutenant that is capable. It's one of the areas is so many of the officers are tied into the night shift, and it's very difficult to assimilate them into the whole training team command structure that exists for the daytime people that are there when the leaders are there. And sometimes departments that have weak nighttime supervision, suffer from that, having almost a dichotomy of levels of service between the daytime and the evenings, and the lack of communication. And by having better training, better supervision at night, your department is better all the way around. And so the police department had highlighted that, and they asked for an additional lieutenant for the night shift that we did not include in the budget, but I want you to be aware of it. It would be the type of thing I'm in favor of it now, but we couldn't in good conscience just like add it with all of the challenges we had. So we want you to be aware of it, and that's something that as soon as the opportunity presents itself, that we'll come back and we'll talk more about how we can afford adding that nighttime supervision. It'll help the department. One of the things we did do is we did have somewhat of an enhancement, more than just a normal budget growth, in their overall police training account. And that will enable them at least to have, people outreached and included in all of the training that happens for that department. And it at least gives them an opportunity to make a little progress in that area. So that was kind of the big one I wanted to mention. The police will explain that to you.
The last item, you mentioned the two big items, one being the retirement, the other one being healthcare. we haven't seen the final assessments from either one of those, I assume, as well as the insurance.
That's correct. On county retirement, the preliminary numbers that we've seen was a 6.73% increase, which is it's almost 400,000, 388,000. It may be a little higher than that. We will know when we get the final assessment, but at least we have a preliminary indication, and that growth is again twice what we saw last year. So we know county retirement is going up almost 400,000, and the assessment numbers are in there. Now, interesting on the health insurance, I do participate on their board of directors, and we'll be having some upcoming meetings that will determine what the level of expenditure will be there. We're very actively trying to take steps right now to manage those costs. The provider costs, this is the actual hospital costs, the costs of the prescription drugs are increasing at a pretty fast clip, faster than we've seen in the past, primarily fueled by runaway train prescription drug cost increases. And one of the most notable examples of that, and of course, you all know, right? We don't have insurance for the health insurance. It's a self-insured trust. So we just have minimal administrative contracts to administer the benefits, and the true costs are the actual doctor's costs. And there are a couple of drug categories that have had just incredible increases in usage that it's almost mind-boggling. First, the cost of the drug, and then secondly, the utilization of it. And these are primarily the GLP-1 brand of drugs, not brand, it's a whatever you call it,
Yes.
that category, yeah. And it's a class of drugs, right? It's in your Wegovys, Zepbound. They were developed primarily as diabetes prevention tools, but obviously are used now as weight loss drugs. And an interesting statistic is that over the next, between now and 2030, something like 75% of our insured population is going to be overweight or obese, so eligible to receive these drugs. And the level of growth has been just monumental. It went from, I don't know, 3 or 4 million a couple of years ago up to where we estimate that, that this is going to be in excess of $50 million just for these drugs over the next couple of years. And
Just for,
the GLP drugs.
just in our consortium, or is this a broader thing?
No, this is just in Cape Cod. So we've got the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group numbers that
So
we're talking
From
about.
from 3 to 50.
Yeah. And that's just crazy. They're very expensive drugs, and the number of people that are on them is mushrooming. So we're having discussions. We may be forced to drop coverage for those drugs, and that's under discussion right now. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm not opposed to that. I know, there are a lot of health benefits that aren't being calculated in there, like the obesity leads to a lot of other diseases that causes lots of costs for health insurance. And so you have to be careful when you do that. But I want you to be aware of, we just took one vote to change the formulary program for administering these drugs, which drugs are covered, and it's a complicated whole mess of a system. But some drugs, the pricing is just for the same chemical, is way higher for certain brands. And so you need to constantly update and change the formulary, so what drugs are covered. And the bottom line is we just last month approved the program that's going to take effect on July 1, that will reduce our overall prescription drug costs by roughly 13.1%, which is huge for us because we've got the GLPs and the other things slamming up the costs. And, not to belabor the point, but we're estimating here, we're probably at 8% increase. It could be a higher increase than that. But we feel with the avenues we've taken to try to limit the costs, and also the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group has a trust fund that is still in excess of 40 million, and that's a long-term rate stabilization trust fund. So we'll be subsidize the overall rate. So what you're seeing is statewide, the health insurance rates are going up probably 15-16%. We could see ours go up in the 10 to 12% range, and hopefully we'll use the stabilization to buy them down kind of towards that 8%. But that's just maybe more on health insurance than you cared to hear. But there's a lot going on there, but the costs are increasing very heavily. And one thing I wanted to mention that sort of helped in our retention strategy, and it's a strategy that we've been using for the health insurance, I think is a real wise one, that a way to solve a problem in a way that helps the town is one of our retention problems is that we've been at the 50% contribution rate for health insurance for our employees, since the inception of the program. And that is dead last in our region. A lot of, people leave employment, here because of that. And all of the other towns are in the 75% range. And, we've stayed steadfast at 50. And we've developed a program that through the health group, we've adopted these new high deductible HMO programs that come in conjunction with the health savings account that we contribute to. So it's a high deductible, but we make a contribution and that goes in the person's account, and then you can save that money. And if you need it, it helps offset the deductible. And these are new modern programs that are all backed up with much more deeper provider discounts for the same services than the older programs like the PPOs that are much more expensive. And as a result of that, you get two benefits. Number one, these programs are like 20% less expensive than the corresponding PPO, even though the benefits are very comprehensive. And number two, for me, even more important, is that because of the provider discounts that are very aggressively managed by our administrators like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Harvard Pilgrim, the level of inflation for the high deductible HMO program is much slower than the rate of inflation for the PPO programs, because they more carefully manage the provider discounts that over time, if the PPO is going up 10%, they'll only go up like 5 or 6%. And that's what we're looking for, is that long-term cost stability. So we've been able to, because we started at such a low base, we offered employee groups incentives to increase the contribution from 50-50 to 60-40 if the employee elects to take the high deductible HMO program, which the net cost to the town is negligible. And the savings that we get over time is a lot. So through that process, every day we're driving more and more people into the more modern, efficient health insurance programs. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, health insurance is very expensive and all these labor costs are very expensive, but we're trying to be mindful of the whole structure of it and make the decisions that we can make now that doesn't drive workers away from us, but also doesn't mushroom our costs.
So when, it's more of a timing question. So when do we expect to receive the sort of the final numbers?
The final numbers will be here in early February.
Okay. So again, so I would just sort of defer maybe sort of any specific questions related to those programs until we probably have the real numbers. I think that so I think the big picture again is this is going to be a very tough year, particularly on the school front. Very little change in terms of staffing, and generally the staffing that is change is supported by, a part of the enterprise funds. Also, I think if, as a generalization, is we look at the detail, because we're going to start digging into this. There have been some interdepartmental transfers. And Jennifer's going to talk a little bit about, for example, moving. You'll notice that the clerk's office now handles all of the day-to-day stuff,
Beach stickers.
big stickers and everything else. So one-stop shop. So that was just a function where they moved a person out of the collector's office who had been doing that into the clerk's office. So there's a little bit of that as well. So with that, unless people have something else that they want to talk about at a high level, I would like to get into the detail level.
So you said the preliminary school budget it looks like it's 6.5%,
6.35.
6.35. What was this year's?
This year's was 3 point, if I remember.
Can I just jump in for a second? I think what you're saying is the school budget is going up 6 point something
Right.
percent. The preliminary numbers from DY school, the assessment, once the foundation formula comes in with the chapter 70, it looks like our assessment is going to be like more like 8%. That's preliminary numbers. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to clear
Would they
that.
go up last year? It was a little bit less.
It was less.
Yeah, it was
Because
less.
they
It's
got
right
a,
here.
it-
Pull it up.
their overall budget growth, I don't think was much less, but they got a big increase in state aid. And as a
Right.
result, their assessment only went up.
Yeah, let me
What was
just,
it, 3 and change or something?
So it's doubling. The projected is to double.
let me just. Didn't show 91. I just want to pull up the page.
Yeah, so part of that is last year, Yarmouth was the only district on the Cape which got more than the state minimum $75 per student.
So it went up like about 2.5%. So usually when it goes up about 2.5%, it's a little over $1 million. And so from 25 to 26, it was a little over $1 million. So they were able to stay within the 2.5%, but it was really how the formula worked. And I think it was the Student Opportunity Act and they had additional chapter 70 money came in. So it kind of flipped it. So actually Dennis got the higher assessment number last year. And then
Remember that.
right, yeah. So it's preliminary at this point. We all said in a meeting in October. But yeah, the preliminary numbers are rather high and there's different scenarios. So we won't know. We have another meeting at the end of January, and that will be after they set the chapter 70 numbers and the foundation budget. And it's the way the formula is written in the regional school agreement.
Thank you.
Time to switch to real numbers, unless you don't want to. Start with on page. Starting with, and we'll start with the easy one, page 18, which is the select board. I don't think there's much to talk about there. The big change from in relative to the select board community services line is the only thing of substance, which is the town's contribution to the St. Patty's Day parade. I think security. I mean, because that became sort of a big issue, and so they have a fund to cover that piece of it. But other than that, they're pretty unexciting. Hearing any questions? Let's go to page 18, 20 to 21. And it goes on from there.
Are we gonna go back to earlier pages? Because I had a quick question
On which one?
on page 12. It's more of an explanation, which
Okay, well, let's,
Yeah.
we can go back to page 12. Sorry about that.
12, 13. I'm just curious, general, other department revenue, what would that be?
On page 13.
Yeah, it's a line item called other.
Yeah, that's usually those are beach stickers or under other departmental revenue and things of that nature. So it's just revenue that I don't have the breakdown. I will tell you though, you know, the monthly reports that you get that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
automatically go out,
Yeah.
they have a breakdown under each line
Okay.
item and it'll tell you
Just
exactly.
curious what it was.
Yeah, that's part of it.
And,
I
and
don't
on
have-
that same page, you go to line item. So why the dramatic shift or drop from, on the investments from actual?
Yeah, it's a very, okay, so,
I'm sorry, can I just-
a lot of times when we estimate our estimated receipts, investment income, as you know, can be somewhat volatile,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so we've been bringing in a lot more investment income in the last
Yep,
few years.
yep.
But if you remember back in 2008, 2009, it took a dramatic drop.
Yeah,
So we want to keep it super conservative.
Okay.
So if it does drop, we're not relying on that to balance the budget.
Okay.
We'll just roll back to.
yeah, I'm just kind of curious how, I guess, because I don't have the 24, I just.
I can tell you, 24 was about 1.5 million.
Okay.
And so it was a lot more. One of the things that was happening here, though, that we just recently corrected is that the investments, you know, from the bank, you know, being invested
Yeah,
in just
yeah.
the bank, the short term,
Yeah,
that money from the enterprise funds was going into the general fund, and you would see this. So you will see a dramatic drop, but that was really because we had to start shifting that money to the enterprise. But we have already seen the interest rates in the banks go down.
Okay.
We negotiate it with our banks.
Yeah. I'm just
we have
curious
to-
why it dropped.
So it's a good question.
Yeah,
We
and-
do have our money collateralized,
Yeah.
too, what gives us.
I mean, it's a
rate.
function of the market, obviously. but-
Exactly.
So, and finally, just on page 12, if you go back to the district improvement financing,
Yes,
actual
the diff.
28,000. So what's that represent?
Okay, so when the wastewater was first passed, they voted the DIF, which is the district
Right.
increment financing. And so any new growth
Yep.
that comes from that district really down 28 is set aside to pay for
Right.
the future wastewater.
Right,
So that's how much we have so far.
okay,
And that gets raised on your tax rate when you set your
Sure,
budget. So that's what we have. You know, the first year was like 75,000, and then the second year was like the difference to that. And so then what you do is you just compound it every year.
that's kind of what I thought it was.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
exactly.
you very much, appreciate it.
I have a question on the local receipts. Like, do you guys have a baseline for that as far as like, I only want to be at
Yeah,
90% or?
exactly. And let's talk about that for a second, because this is real important. And, you know, a lot of times it's good, we look at each individual one and, you know, where does that sit with respect to the, you know, performance and things of this nature. But the bottom line, like one of the most important things that we deal with is when we take that local estimated receipts as a group, there's sort of like a red line at 90% that we've always been in the 80s in terms of making estimates. These are estimates for the next year, what we're going to collect. These aren't actual numbers that we already have. And in making the estimates, you never want to estimate that you're going to collect, you know, over 90% of what you collected in the previous year, because of exactly things like the volatility of the investment income. And so what we've seen over the past couple of years with a little bit of a slowdown in the collection rate, we've been forced to move that percentage from, you know, it was in the mid 80s and now it's getting very close to 90%. And, you know, we're probably at 88 or so percent. So, you know, if you wanted to be very aggressive, right, we're more conservative. That's what keeps us financially sustainable. You could push that up to 90%, but it wouldn't make you a lot of more money. But I would say is you definitely don't want to be in a position that you're estimating you're going to collect 100% of what you collected in the previous year, because in this economy, you're not going to do it. And while there is no penalty, you know, for collecting a little bit over what you estimate, if you have a situation where you don't make your estimate, the very next year, you have to raise, before you raise a penny on your budget, you have to pay all that money back. And then you have to deal with the, you know, the new levels. And so what it does is it multiplies the impacts, the negative impacts on your budget and services for the ensuing year. So you're absolutely right. And we don't want to get to a position where we're estimating more than 90%.
Do you have a confidence rate for that 88%?
Yeah, I think we're very confident. You know, investment income is the one area I would say that's more susceptible to fluctuation. I think that we'll wind up under 90 for sure, but we want to stay there. And like for instance, you know, if the economy is not doing good, you estimate at 90, you know, and then you wind up at the end of the year that margin, you know, can only, you know, will shrink to kind of dangerous levels. So
I just want to point out that you get monthly reports on this, and it will tell you what we've brought to date in this year versus what we brought into date last year
At the same period.
at the same period. And so that's always a good indicator too of where we're at, just so you know.
so we track it, and you know, right, George, we talk about this every year, and you know, he's been on to us the last,
I was laughing earlier.
but the thing is,
Systematic sandbag.
is we would, you know, we would tell them every year that, listen, we're scared that this is going to shrink, this is going to shrink. And so now we're in a period where it's shrinking.
Thank you.
Sorry, any other questions on the revenue pieces? Well, it's like, before we move to the,
Yep, quick question from the remote folks.
oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
Oh,
Gutierrez, yes.
No worries. It's a very tiny little yellow hand. Are we have we benchmarked all our fees and taxes against the market and peer towns?
Yeah, we're in that process now. In fact, one of the things that we did, we started our hearing last night for a fee review, and we do that annually now. Remember, we just did it last year. And it starts with the process where we benchmark the fees, we do comparisons. What are the residential waste stickers? What are the beach stickers? And we had a big increase on the beach stickers last year. We had a talk last night. It was kind of interesting. The select board was talking about raising the beach stickers,
Again,
but we haven't had a year where we sold them at the new rate yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we might not do the beach stickers again this year until we get a year under our belt at the new rate. We're looking at possibly the residential stickers for the waste, the transfer station sticker, and we're a lot of the material that you drop off that has its individual costs. We want to make sure that, you know, we're not allowed to make money for everyone else, but we want to make sure all our costs are covered. And another big one this year that's going up is the ambulance fees. And so those require, you know, we do the benchmarking, we do the advertising, we do the hearing, and we did it last year. And then now we did it again in January. And I don't think that that's been done 2 years in a row ever. But
That's actually the exact fee that prompted my question as I was going through some of the numbers. I noticed that one of the ambulance fees went up about 20%, but the other only went up 10%. We don't have to jump into that detail right now, but thank you for hitting that, because that's the one that flagged me on this question.
So, yeah, and we can, probably the best thing to do would be to get the chief involved. That
Sure.
His team has done an analysis of the ambulance fees, of what areas we could increase. And, you know, and we're trying to do that and, you know, we need to make sure that there's a pretty significant, the two things, those ambulance fees have personnel costs and capital costs tied to them. So you should be confident in what direction they're going.
if you look at page 14, ambulance receipts is a steady $2 million. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, the 2 million it supports the operating budget, you know, for personnel. We bring in 3, so really we're using $1 million for capital, and then we're using 2 million to support the operating budget.
Okay,
So 1 million goes toward buying ambulances, equipment and stuff like
Right.
that.
New engines, new fire engines. Like I say, having a mobile hospital room at your disposal.
Yeah. Riding a red wagon.
Yeah, well, we're gonna hear more from the chief about the continued increase in the activity in the fire department when we get to him.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to Bob and Jennifer, is a general thing, by the way. The salaries, if you look at salaries by themselves, the percentage increases from year to year. It's not just a COLA, it's COLA plus steps and so on. And so I think it might be useful just sort of as a reminder, how that works and how that impacts the salaries as a general rule for all salaries.
Well, the COLAs usually they represent what we put in the budget for the cost of living is, we mirror what we've already settled with the union. So if we have settled contracts, we put in the COLA. The steps, it varies from different unit, but really it's a performance appraisal every year. And then there's this whole range and this formula that you give. And depending on where you are at the range, it could be like 3%, it could be 5% for your cost of living and contract. So that's kind of how.
Yeah, so if you look at the numbers, you'll see some of these higher than 2.5% types of things, and that's part of that process. So if you take a look, for example, on page 20, there's 2 line items for salaries there, the full-time, which I believe are staff who don't have employment contracts, and then you have the salaries, which are employees who do have employment contracts.
And you have your longevity and other things. And
Sick
so
leave buyback.
and there's been a couple of changes,
Yep.
people hitting their longevity marks.
Right.
And so that kind of factors into where the numbers were for this year.
So, and from a headcount standpoint, this is
Number of
7
people.
seven people plus part-timers.
Right. There's a couple part-time and personnel, and then the 7 full-time. Remember, we have the licensing agent, we have 2 people in the administrator's office, assistant town administrator, also personnel's under here. We have 2 people, full-time people in the personnel office.
So that's steady, that's flat.
Yeah.
One of the other, obviously, the other big thing that we've been doing has been the increase in audit. We've gone for the full-blown thing. So is that included in this?
That's in the finance
Is it-
department
well, then
budget.
we'll-
Yeah, when you're ready, we can talk about that anytime I'm ready to talk about the I mean, we wouldn't do it now.
Yeah.
but you can put it on the agenda and I'll walk you
What-
through the finance department.
You're gonna do that?
Okay, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Anything else on headlines that you want to touch on, Bob, for the, again, excluding retirement and healthcare because they don't have difference? I mean, the other big item on this is obviously the townwide energy.
Energy's holding tight. We've gone through some years of significant increases, and we think we're in pretty good shape on the energy budget. So that's good news. All of the town's legal expenses are included here. Those are being level funded as well. So it's not this thing that, everything's going up. It's certain areas, we're being hit with, we went over those. So most of it is, but there's a lot of the town-wide items that are included in here. All of the town's property casualty, workers' compensation, police and fire, medical insurance that we pay out of this. So it's administration, but most of it is actually town-wide costs to support all the operation, all the benefits, everything like that.
And when will we have the final number for the property and casualty?
I hope to get that, by the end of January, we're gonna be at the Massachusetts Municipal Association and we have the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, that's the MIA, has their annual meeting, and that's when they vote the rates. And so that'd be like January 29.
So again, all of that will come,
Well, usually, I mean, do you mind if I jump in with the property? All right, they do give us preliminary
Yeah.
numbers, so they say plan for like 10%. So what you see in, and just so I want to point out, what you see in this budget for property and liability, we had already had a sufficient cushion in your property liability and your workers' comp. So we were able to, you know, kind of level fund that, take that down a little bit. And so I don't see that changing. I don't see us taking that down because you do want to keep, if you have a little bit, I think we still have a little bit of a cushion. So even if, you know, they said 10% and then it goes up like 8%, we probably won't adjust it because you need to keep some flexibility in the budget. Because when you keep a little bit of flexibility in the budget, it helps you manage. So that number won't change. The number that will change will be Barnstable County retirement and possibly the health insurance. I mean, we don't know what the rates are, but we feel that we, you know, we have sufficient cushion maybe there to eat any type of increase over the 8%. But you will see a different number from Barnstable County.
police and fire medical, that's again, sort of, if you go back in time, it's sort of been, you know, in the teens and twenties, historically. Is there anything that we should know relative to looking ahead?
No, it's really nothing.
Yeah, that's just the,
Yeah.
okay, perfect. Other questions from other people, sir?
I have a
Perkins.
sort of a long-term, not long-term, but sort of a general question about our, let's call them the skilled employees, the people we train. How significant is the cost of their living here? Because it's relatively high. I mean, you described that when we negotiate, we worry about how do we stand on wages relative to other towns and compensation relative to other towns, and play little games like, you know, 50-50 on health insurance to go to 50-60, 60-40, whatever. But how much of that is basically vitiated because the moment they see a job off Cape, that's, you know, maybe the same salary, they're going to jump immediately because they can live cheaper off Cape. So, I mean, what I'm getting at is in our negotiation, are we recognizing that there's a cost to us to train these skilled people? That's why I focused on that. And if we're turning them over at an unbelievably rapid rate, how can we address that other than paying them, as you said, Bob, below the median? So, you know, it's somehow we're already coming in kind of low, and unless we're all playing with the same you know, obstacles in terms of cost of living in the area, are we really shooting ourselves in the foot because we are training these people, we keep them for a year or two, and they're gone, and we got to bring somebody else in, train them again?
I think especially when it comes to skilled people, we'll hear more about, specifically public safety. We'll hear more about that from the chiefs. They did, if you go to last night's presentation, that was actually one of the topics that was talked about last night.
Okay.
I think the context there is there was this push to provide some incentives for, you know, basically poach other towns. And that has actually yielded a few possibilities. So I think again, they're trying different strategies, and we should definitely bring that up when we see them, because they've been very upfront about what they need to do, and their training costs are through the roof.
Yeah, but it's a big problem, and you hit it. I mean, it's the elephant in the room of the cost of housing on Cape Cod. That and here's the sad part about it is we can't pay people enough to be able to afford housing. You know, it's uneconomic. We can't continue our operations and pay these people enough to afford housing. So, you know, we're relegated to trying to remain as competitive as we can in our, you know, general wage package, because, even the people that can find housing, there's all of the communities around us, because of the general lack of housing. I mean, situation is such that these police and fire jobs, these are our, probably our highly trained, nice skilled people. We would have an opening 20 years ago and you'd have 150 applicants. You'd have to take a test to be this big thing. How the hell do we narrow this down? It's a big issue. Now we have an opening. We're lucky if we get 5 applicants. And it's because the number of people that have available housing in the area has dwindled so much. Not to mention, with this incoming generations, I guess the cachet of having one of these town jobs has just, maybe declined in our overall social consciousness. It's not something that people aspire, in larger numbers to do. So recruitment is exceedingly difficult, and we're dipping our toes into potentially working on some strategies. Like, for instance, we're working on this Mattakey study to set aside a small neighborhood that could be sort of a moderate income, not low income housing, but housing that could be reserved for municipal employees of moderate income. And so, you could create a handful of units that way and other projects, but we can't build enough housing for town employees, and we can't pay people enough to get housing. So it hurts us. It is one of the causes of the lack of retention. I mean, people do want to live here. So it's not a situation where people are looking to move off Cape, but it's having the housing. If people can find housing, they'll come work for us, but they're not going to come work for us without the housing.
And it's not just police and fire, teachers are also.
Teachers are also in that. It's pretty much every profession.
We talk about this every year.
Yeah. And
Doesn't seem like we're winning the battle here.
any other questions related to admin? And again, our process historically, and we'll defer this, but historically, the week following a review of a particular department, we would make a provisional vote to recommend the thing. So we will defer the admin one until we have the final numbers, but so potentially would be taking a vote on selectmen. And the next one coming up is information and central purchasing.
You wanna do
Page
that?
24. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
This one, I mean, this is again, I think we're talking headcount wise, 5 FTEs.
Yeah.
Is that a transfer of someone?
Yeah,
Yep.
so what we did was we transferred the GIS person over to engineering in the DPW.
So you'll see that in, when we get to the DPW, you'll see that as an offset. Any other?
And we've done that already, and it's been a huge success.
Mm.
So it's a real smart move. I'm working with the engineers over in DPW. They've got the GIS humming. We're at like levels that we've never been at because, it's really hard doing it under IT. It's really is, it's a pretty mapping intensive experience, and that's where they're doing all that work with the different overlays and the infrastructure. So
Yeah, one of the
it's one for the good guys. That one.
for the good guys. One of the lighter notes at last night's select board meeting is they were talking about the need, sort of cyber training because it's so critical these days. And, and they said, well, you have to complete your cyber training by clicking on the link on the email. And all the select board goes,
Kiss of death.
he says, one thing you've taught me is I don't click on a link in an email. You'll have to do something.
We passed it.
Anyway, so if there are any other questions, I'm going to go right in.
Just one quick one. Would you please explain to me what GIS means.
Oh, that's the Geographic Information System. So it's basically a
Oh, okay,
database that's
okay.
map oriented.
All right.
And it
Okay.
stores everything in the layers on the maps. And
Okay.
planners use it, the engineers
yep.
use it, DPW.
I got it.
If you're going to manage your assets, you have to have a GIS system to tell it where it is. Moving on. Page 27. This is Jennifer's specialization here. Take it on, Jennifer.
So this is the assessor's budget, nothing remarkable here, just, contractual increases. There is a slight increase in the expenses, and that's just for, we do an RFP assistance for, valuation of personal property. So we're going out for another 3-year RFP. So I think you see a slight increase in your, expenses.
And the professional and technical side, yeah.
Other than that, that's what's going on there.
I mean, for such a small department, it does an amazing job.
Yeah, they did. We just had a revaluation year, which is pretty intensive. They did a great job. So yeah,
Yeah, so
Why do we reevaluate?
5 years. They used to be every 3, and then the DOR changed it a few years ago, and it's every 5.
Who changed it?
The Department of Revenue.
So for those who are living closer to the water,
And I just want to mention what happens really is every year we adjust the values because based on sales. So if you're seeing property values increase, you will see, your value probably increase because it is based on sales. So we do that adjustment every year. It's an algebraic equation really with the tax rate. So if your values are skyrocketing, it's going to drive the tax rate down, but we always take proposition 2.5. So every 5 years we do a revaluation. What that means is we're always adjusting, but now the DOR comes in and they're really going to go through everything that you do, and you have to meet certain benchmarks. You have to have, a calendar of and meet certain requirements from them to actually show them how you're revaluing. So it's just more extensive every 5 years, but you do see the adjustment every year. And we're required to, every 10 years, to do cyclical. So the property should be actually gone out and looked at every 10 years. So we do a number of properties every year.
What's our current ratio to market to, assessed value?
We're supposed to be at 100.
We're supposed to, but it's usually, I think, around 90 to a little bit more. I don't have the calculations. Yeah.
it's,
Or something then.
no,
Yeah, now, they say that we're supposed to be at 100. You can never be
Right,
perfectly.
right. Be nice to be at 110 for a year or two.
Yeah.
Might not be good at the polls for the selectmen at that time.
yeah. Any other questions on assessing? Accounting is on page 30.
So you will see some increases in accounting. We have an audit every year, excuse me, and we've really have paid for our audit has been very, very low. So we kind of had to negotiate with them. So you do see an increase in our audit of about $15,000. So, and that's really right around market, what you'll see with auditors coming in and really looking at our financials every year and preparing our audited financial statements. And it's not that they just come in and audit us and they say, okay, this is great. We're on a cash basis with accounting, with the DOR. So we book everything as cash. When you look at the financial statements from the auditors, that's on the modified accrual basis. So they do make those adjustments for us and they put the audit together for us. And so that it really is a good price from them. If we were to go out for an RFP, we'd be paying more than that. And they have been doing a very good job and they've been getting it to us. A lot of communities are fighting with their auditors. They're not getting their audits on time at all. There's been communities that are switching. So there's a problem out there in the market. And I just want to let you know that I'm super confident with who we use and they've done a great job. But you do see a significant increase in that.
Okay.
How many are out there, Jennifer?
Audit firms.
Yeah,
When you're looking at a municipality, you're only going to do 3 or 4 that are
yeah.
gonna come in.
So
Not a lot. There's not a lot to choose from out there.
Remember Alyssa talking about that last year?
And there's a lot of merging going on, right? So right now we have what's called CBiz, and it used to be something it used to be Markham, and before that it was Powers and Sullivan. Powers and Sullivan was around for years and audited all the, so then they, got bought out, and then they get bought out again. And so you get concerned, because you see that a lot with the municipal software companies as well. But no, I've been super happy. And then you see the smaller firms where they might have had 2 or 3 communities. Now they have like 15 or 20 communities. So there's definitely movement there.
You're 20 years behind the law firms.
Yeah.
Treasure collector. Again, this is where there's a reduction because of the move.
Yep. So we had a position. So with the treasurer collector's office, and you might have always seen it when you come in, it gets very, very busy around tax time and beach time. There's still a contingent of people who want to come in and get their beach stickers. They don't want to do it online. They don't want to do it in the mail. Then when they come down here, they want to come and actually walk away with the beach. The lines have been crazy at times. And then, with the treasurer collector's office, they're collecting, for, sewer bills and, the taxes and everything. And, so what we did is we took a position from the treasurer collector's office, moved it over to the clerk's office, because the clerk, I guess, and she was familiar, so she's familiar with the process, used to sell beach stickers. So what we did is we moved the position over, and we have a dedicated window for beach stickers. And so we think this is going to make it a lot more efficient, move the line a little bit better. It won't be like wrapped around where people are trying to do, because you could go to the treasurer collector's office and pay your motor vehicle excise or your tax, and they're looking it up, and it might take a few minutes. With here, you come in, you give them your documentation, you can walk away with your beach sticker. Although I do want to mention, we will promote online mailing, because it really, is more efficient. And I don't know. I know, like Barnstable, you can't do that in Barnstable. You have to buy it online. If you want a beach sticker, you have to buy it online. Then you're not going to walk in. But, it really is a service that we give to the community. And my feeling on it is I'd want to continue to provide that service. And not something I'd like to take away. I think we have a good solution for it.
Any other questions on that one? So that brings us to the town clerk. It's page 34.
Okay, so we added the position of clerk. Another unremarkable budget. It reflects elections. I don't really have a lot to say about the town. It's pretty much level funded. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them.
I mean, the big change, obviously, for 27 will be, I'm trying to think of the election cycle.
I think we have the town election, and then I think it is an election cycle for
27.
Congress.
yeah,
The
Congress,
yeah.
yeah. So, and you can see the minor increase in the budget for that.
Yeah. Now, we also get offsetting revenues that come in from the state for mail-in.
We do, so we do submit to the state every year on the state elections. We submit some expenses, and we do get reimbursed to offset those expenses. It's really a grant, but that's in another fund.
So it just it shows up on the revenue side, and there's potentially an increase on the expense side. So, and then there's the fund that we have just in case there's a disaster, but we haven't had a disaster recently, so that's good. So that gets us to,
Happy to clarify that. I was looking at it saying, what is the reserve fund? Was Richard's got some sort of reserve?
Oh, yeah.
No, what is that going on?
We're gonna get paid.
Urgency and that's all they pay.
now, again, we're lucky.
Let's cut it.
Yeah, we're lucky that we haven't had to ever use this. It also is a powerful tool in the context of, I think, well, in the general, and you've talked about this, the huge advantages that our town has because of the town charter is the ability to make adjustments
Yeah.
within, and that is a very powerful tool.
Yeah, when we have issues that come up with the budget, because we have this in a bylaw, we can transfer money around. Not a lot of communities have that. If they do the transfer, it has to be in the last 60 days of the fiscal year, or they have to utilize the reserve fund, or they go to town meeting. So here we try to do the transfer throughout the year. It's always good to have, I've had conversations with departments when they think something's going to happen, we always have the reserve fund. And really what happens here is it's for extraordinary and unforeseen expenses. If something happens in a budget that we did not see, we can use the reserve fund, and with just the vote of the finance committee, we transfer that money to supplement the budget. But right now, I like to keep it there just in case, right? Because it's extraordinary and unforeseen, and we'll use it if we find that something came up and we can't actually transfer money. Sometimes we might use, we tend to, like with snow and ice, I used to use it a lot with snow and ice, but that will go over, but a lot of times we'll just fund that at town meeting as well. In snow and ice, they let us over expend, until we actually have the final numbers. But yeah, it's always good to have.
And at last night's meeting, Jeff said it's going to be bigger
Yeah.
this year.
Understand.
So, let's briefly, I think we're done. I mean, you guys are welcome to stay, but I think unless there's other questions, Nate.
Not on this topic, but Bob, while Bob's here, I had a question that I wrote you about over the weekend about the stickers. I don't know whether anybody here has gotten their beach sticker application.
Yep.
But on the
Yeah.
back of it this year, there will be no dump sticker.
Oh,
Right, it's all
It's
virtual.
going to be red now, and my question was, before, when you had a sticker on your window, when you drove in, the guy or the person in the shack could see that you had a sticker or didn't have a sticker. Now it's supposedly going to be red and there'll be no stickers. How is this going to work when a person drives in there and doesn't have a sticker and hasn't paid? So they're going to drive in, they're going to dump their stuff,
Oh,
they
no.
haven't paid, and they're going to leave. Okay? And when people start finding out, geez, Yarmouth doesn't need a sticker, you can just drive in there.
Okay, so Jennifer,
Yeah, so we went on to, we have changed it, so for the stickers, and it works very well in other communities. And what happens is, it's not that they look for a sticker, but there's an electronic device, so when you drive through, the person will still be there, and if you haven't paid, you'll get flagged, and they won't let you go through.
How will he know?
Because he'll have a device there, that will read your
Right
license
at the
plate
gate.
at the gate.
No, yeah, it reads.
Yep.
So you're going to have a full-time monitor at the shack.
Yep,
Standing, okay. great.
absolutely.
Because I was wondering people can't bill them because they're already in violation. They're sort of.
Stickers are going the way of the white whale.
Yeah.
In a few years, they'll be non-existent
Right.
Okay.
everywhere. We're just sort of copying what everyone else is doing
Okay.
successfully. We're not groundbreaking
I
on
was going to
this.
say, the Metro card in New York bit the dust over this week.
Yeah. But I mean, thank you for explaining that, because I see people come in there now that are commercials that shouldn't be dumping their stuff.
That's, yeah.
And-
Get me started on that.
Well, that's
And
a
we
lot.
know we've got, I was just involved in a discussion on that, and just recently, I mean, we have people that have been trying it, and they've caught, we catch them.
Yeah.
And they're stopped, but I hear, so-and-so had you gotta be careful too, there are some people that have like a car, right, a regular passenger car, and they have the sticker on the side that they use it for their business and stuff,
Yeah.
but if it's, a half ton or less, you're allowed
Yeah.
to have one of those vehicles.
Yeah.
But commercial vehicles are not allowed to use that. There's a different rate, a whole different setup.
Yeah.
And we have been catching people. There's been a couple of cases. It's not that people won't try it, but they have the
Yeah.
technology to catch them.
I mean, I I, of course, use the dump because cheap way to go. But I've seen people come in with pickup trucks or big six-wheelers
The,
loaded with stuff and they're dumping it, there's 3 or 4 of them taking it out of the thing and filling up the damn dumpster. And
Wow.
you know,
But they have there's a commercial rate that, sometimes they'll direct them like to put it there. But if you have a commercial vehicle, you're paying it, it's a different
okay,
fee.
all right, Okay, thank you.
Could we not just charge a fee for every violator? I mean, it's just like if you go to the tolls on a state highway, so
that would be fun.
you just,
Oh, they add you. Yeah,
get in the
well,
mail.
we'll take you and just take your cash. That's the way to do it.
Raphael, I see you have your hand up.
Dan?
This will be the last time. I just wanted to thank Bob for the opening comments on the wastewater treatment plant and the ongoing discussions regarding the operation staffing of that system, of that plant, because it can't, the cost and complexity of running that plant and the associated and ancillary systems can't be overestimated. The spectrum is from scheduling stuff as simple as the daily or weekly truck rolls in and out of the plant to managing very sophisticated service and maintenance agreements with the original equipment manufacturers of the subsystems in the facility itself can't be overestimated. This is something that, unless folks are certified by the OEMs and you work on it, you void the warranty. So there are a lot of layers to this onion that have to be picked apart to adequately cost, schedule, and fund the operation of that facility. So thank you for reassuring us that those conversations are ongoing, because there are a couple of us on the finance committee that are, I'll stop short of saying terrified, but so I'll say very concerned.
Thank you, Raphael. Jennifer, now that you've done all your hard work, do you want to give us a quick, any updates that you want to share?
I really don't have any updates. Really, the
Is
updates I would have to do with the budget and last night. So.
Oh, well. We'll move to agenda item number 7. Discussion and possible vote to approve prior meeting minutes. Included at the end of your packet were the meeting minutes of December 3rd, 2025. I don't know if anybody has any edits that they would like to make.
I would move it.
Anderson.
Second.
Anderson. And Perkins. Roll call vote. Mr. Perkins. Aye.
Listen,
That's all right. You can still.
up, yes.
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 Raphael.
Aye.
Alyssa. Yep.
Aye.
John. Aye. I am an aye as well. That carries 7-0. They'll get posted. By the way, for anybody who likes to watch the details, there's one group that is perfect now on having their minutes completely up to date. Thank you for helping us make that happen.
You guys are up to date on all your minutes?
Yeah.
Congrats.
Big accomplishment.
That is a
It is a
big
big
accomplishment.
Wow. We're going.
It's been about 5 years. So
No. Quick review of the, so just to give you a quick set of things. So our next meeting, we are meeting next week, same time, same station. Next week is Community Development and Inspection Services, as well as we'll have a vote for preliminary vote on to approve the Select Board and IT budgets. Other items of interest, I'm going to be meeting tomorrow with Dr. Smith to talk about the agenda items for that committee meeting. We were not, so there's a process. We're following the MSBA process. The last board meeting, which was December 12th, the MSBA's board meeting, did not extend or did not include DY's request in their approval booklet. So it doesn't mean that it's not approved. It just wasn't handled at that meeting. The next meeting that they have is February 24th. So that sort of raises some questions about when, the sequence of meetings for that, because that potentially would put us off until at least early March to get that sort of kicked into gear. So just that's a practical
Why
matter.
didn't they include them?
Again, it could be a gazillion reasons. If you look at their internal calendar, they have 2 major meetings scheduled in January, I think, to address some of those bigger issues. I mean, they have a backlog, so it's like everything else. Any other items from any of the committee members? Hearing none.
Budget book's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's done a great job.
Thank you.
If there are any things that you notice that minor things that typos and that sort of stuff, just let me know. So that you don't have to call Jennifer individually. Ask. I know, but just let me know. and I'll
We
try-
know where they are, so we're gonna see if we can find them.
Oh, this is good. Yeah.
So where's Waldo?
Our homework. George will find them, believe me.
Do you really read them?
There's find mistakes in the book, see if you can find.
That's like, that's the old, the quality control, quality insurance things. They would throw stuff into the line on purpose to see if people were paying attention. Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll move it.
Mr. Perkins, Mr. Anderson, boy, that was fast. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Raphael?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and I is aye as well, 7-0. Meeting concluded at 7:30.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next
Good
week.
night.
Thank